Hello, you finally come off for a spell and you're now on the bench with the Benchwarmers. Welcome to episode 4. Today we will be discussing the recent events that have just occurred in round 12. But to start off, I'd like to start off with the actual Footy Festival, which has just concluded today. So in the Footy Festival, there were 20 days straight of football, which I'm sure we all loved, but I'd love to get your boys' take on what you think of it and whether you think we should continue it in the future. Connor Brown, I'd like to start off with you, mate. What do you think of this?
I think it was definitely necessary, seeing where we were coming from with no footy being played if we wanted to get a full season in. However, I'm more towards the view that, it might have been too much on the players. I think the 4-day rests really hurt sides. And, of course, you'd see that, major players would be omitted or considered managed and they'd miss out. And that can really affect sides, and that can be, at times, a factor to whether they win or whether they lose. And for sides such as my team, Essendon, we've suffered a bit with injuries through this period, which sees us, outside the 8 now, not able to play some of our top players throughout all the games, which isn't ideal. But again, it was necessary to get the full season in.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're completely right in saying that it was completely necessary for just due to the effects of COVID-19, really, just to get that footy frenzy in and fit in as many games of the 18 round year as possible. Yeah, definitely. Does anyone else think otherwise? Does anyone else think that it was a good thing and that it should be continuing into the future?
Well, I don't necessarily think it was as a viewer, I think it was great for the fans of the game. Constant footy every single day. But I do agree that there was a lot of soft tissue injuries around the whole AFL, and it did take a toll on players. But I reckon it's something they could look into. Maybe not as short of breaks for some teams, but as a viewer and for the viewers, I reckon it was a great move from the AFL.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, just speaking about injuries, I'd like to quickly touch on Essendon and Collingwood's injury lists. Now, at the moment, I'll just let you boys know. So Collingwood's injury list, these are the types of players that they've got on their injury list as of right now. So you've got Jordan De Goey with his finger, who's out for 6 to 8 weeks. You've got Jamie Elliott, who's being tested. You've got Will Hoskin-Elliott with a knee issue. Jeremy Howe, 6 to 8 weeks still. Will Kelly, Scott Pendlebury with the quad, Isaac Quainer, and Adam Treloar with the hamstring. So these are some pretty big names that are missing out on the Collingwood side, and is probably affecting them to get a good run in the back end of the season. What do your boys' take on the amount of injuries that Collingwood has at the moment and how it's affecting their footy? Go for it, Josh. I'm sure you'll have something to say.
Yeah, look, I don't think Collingwood's performance as a whole has been pathetic, despite some of the poorer games we've seen so far. But the injury list is definitely to blame for overall, what has been an underwhelming season. And at this point, looking at it, going forward for the rest of the season and the finals, I don't think I can see him making a big impact. I think the flag is out of their reach, and the finals is definitely slipping away from them.
Yep, no, definitely. And James, I know you're a Pies supporter. What's your take on this one, mate?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Josh. I think that with the injury list that we have right now, it's definitely not ideal, but we're not the only team that's in that boat. Essendon are another big side that, like you just mentioned, are a side that are struggling with injuries, and they're playing good footy, and we're not, to be honest. We're not at our best. We still got a side out there that's capable of doing good things, but right now it's just not working for us, and we need to find an answer.
Yeah, definitely. I think just in such a shorter season, wins become really sort of, important for teams. Yeah, vital for teams to actually announce themselves as a contender. It's not as long as the 22-week season or the 23-week season that we're used to having, and therefore I feel like it's a lot more competitive, and you got to compete more for an 8-week to make the top 8. These injuries are definitely not helping. Connor Brown, did you have something maybe to touch on with that?
Firstly, I'll just throw it to Josh because I know he wanted to bring up a quick point, and then I'll get back to it.
Okay, sure. Go for it.
Yeah, just
mate.
quickly, I'd like to mention that it definitely shows that teams like Adelaide, who have such a reliance on big players like Brad Crouch, Tom Duday, and those other players. But in terms of Brad Crouch and Tom Duday, they've gone down with soft tissue injuries, really severe ones, from trying to make the big impact on the field for a struggling team. And it's backfired in their face, which has definitely been a result of maybe the shorter rest breaks. But we can't look away from, the game may be going downhill in terms of soft tissue injuries, and there's got to be a way to fix it.
Yeah, and also one other slight thing I just wanted to touch on. At the start of the season, after the first sort of few rounds, we established Collingwood as probably, probably 80% of people's premiership favourites in the first few rounds of the season. And it just goes to show how quick things can change in a season with injury after injury. They're now being talked about as, potentially not even making the top 8. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on as we get to these later stages of the season. Connor Brown, did you want to say something?
Yeah, well, I just want to think about this in a more broad perspective. Some teams like Essendon and Collingwood have big players out at the moment. But the question is, do you risk bringing them back too early for, to get those big wins against the bigger teams in order to make the top 8? Because if you do and they get injured again, then you risk them being out for part of next season. Is that really worth it? It's that sort of that weighing factor. Is it worth it? Because personally, for teams like Essendon, you can rush players back to get them back into the side, hopefully push for that top 8 position. But then it risks our chances of even next year, having half our side out. Because at the moment, we have 12 of our best 22 out.
Yeah. Yeah, look, it's a really good point. I think the teams now just need to take a really good look at themselves. Teams like Essendon and Collingwood with big injury lists need to really take a good look at themselves and think whether it's worth getting their top-end players back on and trying to contend for the 8. Because you don't want to risk them getting injured and sort of risking them not participating in next year's back to normal season. So teams do need to take a good look at themselves. I mean, we saw today with James Sicily. Actually, we found out that he's ruptured his ACL, and that effectively wipes out half of this season and all of next season. So teams need to be really cautious and figure out whether they are a real contending team for the grand final. And if they're not, just play it safe and rest your players, because it's been a pretty tough year as it is. Sonny Purdy, I know you've been waiting. What do you want to say?
Well, look, I'm sure teams like Collingwood and Essendon aren't gonna, tank this season or as of now and just, drop all their players and get a good draft spot. I reckon they'll still try, but it's games like the Melbourne Collingwood game which will determine their season. They're in that bracket from 12 to 6, those 6 teams. It's all going to come down to percentage. And Melbourne absolutely dominated them, won by 56 points, killed Collingwood's percentage. And I reckon that's going to determine a lot of the season, games like that. It's all going to end up on percentage. But, I don't reckon teams like Essendon and Collingwood should rest players. I don't reckon they'll end up tanking. But, it's something to consider, definitely.
Can I just quickly, just there with your draft point?
No worries.
The thing, if teams are going to tank, the question is, why would they do that when some of the draft pick players haven't even played football this year? So they won't know sort of what level they're at the moment. And that could sort of affect their judgment of, who's the best draft pick at the moment. So I don't know. There's sort of questions around that area.
Yeah, because especially in Victoria, you know, none of these players have played a single NAB League game. None of them have played VFL, you know, so we really don't know what we're looking for. I know the Sandful and the Waffle and, you know, Sydney and Queensland have been playing, but, you know, other than that, the Victorian, which is the absolute hotspot for draft picks, is got a really questionable future. We don't even know how it's going to work out at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. 2020 is a year of surprises, and I guess it's just whoever can deal with it the best will put themselves in the best position for the future. Let's just move on now. We'll talk about the Carlton controversial free kick. It's caused a couple of fights in this group already. We'll talk about it again, though. We won't shy away from it. Just
James,
an update.
James,
Josh,
go
mate.
ahead.
Josh.
Go ahead, James.
Sorry for speaking while you're interrupting, mate. I'm about to mute you. So just the update that came out just earlier tonight was that the decision to award a downfield free kick to Carlton in the dying stages of Saturday's match against the Fremantle Dockers has been ticked off. However, the kick shouldn't have been taken by Jack Nunes. It should have been taken by Michael Gibbons instead. James, I know you're very passionate about this one, mate. You can go for it. Just remember, this is a PG audience.
Yeah. I just think that wasn't a free kick. I think that the impact was very minimal. I think that it was going out of bounds on the full anyway, before the contact even hit him. I think that he could have landed on his feet. There's a video of it where he's just thrown himself to the floor to obviously milk the free kick, much like Callum Ward did against Essendon to win them the game. I think it's a very similar circumstance, and I just think that from a leader of a football club, much like Callum Ward was, to just, you know, milk a free kick to give your side a chance is, you know, not within the guidelines of the sport. You know, it's a physical game. You know, you got to take a couple of hits here and there, and I just think that as a captain, you know, you just got to stand up. You got to acknowledge that the kick wasn't in the field of play, and you just got to stand up and not milk a free kick.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, James. But, like, let's not shy away from the facts here. The free kick wasn't there, and the AFL ticking it off means absolutely nothing because, you know, it's been a while since, you know, this season we've seen a lot of controversial free kicks. We've seen a lot of disputes with umpiring. We've seen a lot of disputes with calls. The AFL is really just doing what they can to defend the umpires at this point because this was way too big an issue, you know, because I don't know about you, but I can't stand Carlton, and winning in that fashion was absolutely abysmal and was really hard to watch, especially when they definitely didn't deserve it. The game was lost off that kick by Sam Doherty, and they were given a second chance. And while I respect the kick completely, how they got it was an absolute disgrace.
Look, I'd like to jump in. First of all, I'd like to start off by saying that any sort of contact after a player has gotten rid of the football should be looked at. And boys, we've all played. All of us here have played at somewhat of a high level of football, whether it's through Interleague, Western Jets, or anything like this. And we know that the speed of the game increases and that the intensity increases as well. We can only imagine how tough it must be to play AFL footy. And especially in a game like this one, where it was a real arm wrestle for the entire game. Not a single goal was kicked in the last quarter until after the siren. So players can only be fatigued, like really fatigued by the dying stages of the game. And therefore, I just think it's a lot easier for a player to be knocked over. I mean, at the start of the game, you know, you've got all your fitness, like all your aerobic capacity is there, your aerobic power, you know, all this physical education talk. But, you know, it's just in the dying stage of an AFL game, players get tired, and it's a lot easier for players to be knocked over the ball.
Listen,
And
Marlon,
in-
listen.
No, Josh,
No,
Josh,
you listen to me. All you're
Wait a
doing
second.
is justifying why Sam Doherty flopped. That's all you've just done.
Josh,
Of all things you could have
no,
said, you didn't
no,
dispute the free
no,
kick.
no,
All you
yeah,
did
I'm not
was
finished.
dispute the fact
Stop
that
it.
Sam Doherty
Stop it.
flopped for a
Stop
good
it.
reason.
Okay.
Josh loves
so,
to speak. Josh
no,
loves it.
Okay, guys, you're not listening. Sam
No,
Doherty.
you're not listening.
No.
You are
listen.
just biased because
All right, no. Everyone's had the input. Everyone's had the input.
All right, give it to
Guys,
Sonny.
listen.
Hand it over to Sonny. Marlon, you just
No,
waffled.
you're not-
You just
no,
waffled,
you're not.
and you
No.
didn't even make a
Be
good
on
point
the
doing
dog.
it.
Sam
Marlon.
Doherty. No, guys, let me
Marlon.
finish.
No.
I have
You
one
had your
sentence.
chance.
I have one
You
more
want to talk
sentence.
about me going on for
one more
95% of
sentence.
last episode and listen to you.
Josh,
Joshua.
I have one more sentence, mate.
All right,
I
go
have
for
one
it.
more sentence.
Go for it.
If you rewatch the footage, when
he
Sam
flopped.
Doherty,
He flopped.
no,
you're
I
not rewatched it. I watched it just before this.
When Sam Doherty, yeah, so did I. When Sam Doherty kicks the ball,
It's going out of bounds on the full.
It is a split second after where Brayshaw hits him, and he is on one leg. It's not very hard to knock a player over when you're on one leg right after.
Yeah, but usually it's not a free kick.
stage
That's
of
the
the
thing.
game.
It's usually not a free kick.
Okay,
Usually you
I'm
just
gonna
leave it.
All right, listen.
Josh, at any other
No. Let
stage
Sonny
of the
speak.
game,
Let
it
Sonny
would have
speak. You've
been
been
paid as a free
neglecting
kick.
Sonny. How dare
So
you?
why-
How dare you neglect Sonny?
Mate, Sonny can wait for 2 seconds. At any other stage of any game, this would have been paid as a downfield free kick. So I
No,
don't know
not a
why you're
chance.
disputing
Not a
it right
chance.
now.
Not
It
a
would have
chance.
been.
Listen,
And we know how
Imagine
bad
this
the
was against
umpires
your
have been
team.
as well, and
Imagine
how
this happened
inconsistent.
when you were up by 2 points against Freo and this exact
Yeah,
situation happened.
that's fine.
You
I would not be surprised.
fuming. You would be in
I
my
would not be.
position right
No,
now.
Josh, I'm somewhat agreeing with you. Listen, I would not be surprised because of how inconsistent the umpires are. If the umpires have been consistent this year, I would maybe be more shocked with the call. But because they've been so inconsistent, it's just like whatever. But
All
I
right,
can
Marlon.
sort of
So
see
you're
where it's
saying it
coming
was a
from.
bad call?
All right.
No, I'm not.
All right,
It
No,
was
you
knocked
literally
after
just
he
said
kicked
that.
it.
You said, if the umpire
bottom
was more
line is-
consistent, that's a bad call.
The bottom line is he was knocked after he kicked it. Sonny, go on.
Ha!
All right. Look, he was knocked after a kick. You can. I don't reckon, because if you look at other downfield free kicks, they're lining him up, right? They're lining the opponent that's kicking the ball up. They've got their eyes on him. Brayshaw, he was running towards Doherty. He jumps to smother it, and when he lands, he doesn't take steps forward and like bumps into him. He lands and they collide. It's just like when two players are running for a ball, they both jump up and hit each other, right? Yeah. Doherty didn't need to fall over, but he did. Brayshaw,
but the thing is, look,
fall over and he didn't.
Sam Doherty in this point was. Okay,
that's got nothing to do with it.
Josh.
When does fatigue
No,
ever had to
Josh,
do with the free kick? You can't turn around and punch someone because you're tired out of your mind.
No, Josh.
The same rules apply
listen.
regardless of whether you're fatigued.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And Sam Doherty was the player in possession of the ball. Brayshaw did go for a smother. However, it's just unlucky. It's purely just unlucky that he landed into Sam Doherty after he had kicked it, and that's where the free kick.
It's not unlucky because it happens in games constantly. When you jump up for a smother and you bump into someone, he's not lining him up. That's the point of
Of course he's not. Yes, I agree with you.
When you kick it and there's a second, like a couple seconds after, and you bump into him, it was a split second. He jumped up, his momentum came, and like when he landed, they hit each other. Not when. He didn't take a step after. It's when he landed, he hit him.
Yeah, look, I don't know. It's definitely we could stay here for ages and ages talking about it. It's been probably the most controversial topic for this round, and it's just look, some people sort of agree with it, some people don't. The AFL has ticked it off and said that Jack Nunes shouldn't have been the player kicking it. So it's messy all over the place, and we know that the umpires have been really inconsistent throughout this whole year. So it's really hard to get a gauge of where they're at the moment. Connor Brown, did you have anything to touch on, mate?
Oh, look, it's pretty much just all unfolded before me here. But the big thing is, it's like a big moment in the game, as Josh sort of touched on, and you give away a free kick that ultimately wins Carlton the game, right? Yes, there was a mistake in there. We've accepted that. But the thing is, it did win Carlton the game in the end. Whether whether they deserve to win it or not, it did win Carlton the game. And I think this comes back to what we talked about a couple episodes ago, where it's like, put the whistle away, let the game play. In big moments like this, the umpire's blown the whistle, given the free kick, Carlton go back and kick the goal. I mean, can't go wrong. That was a brilliant kick from Nunes. But ultimately, I sort of sit with Josh and James here that, probably wasn't a free kick, but yeah.
Fair enough. Look, it was,
And
I mean, just in general, if you were to look at the game though, Carlton did have 4 more scoring shots and did sort of dominate in the second half, whereas Fremantle dominated in the first half. So look, it was always going to be close, but it just so happened that with the events of the game, the old saying goes true. It is what it is, and I guess we just move on from here. But it is a controversial topic. Yeah.
Right, Fremantle winning the whole game, and that the only time they were down was after the siren, and also one person was arguing against everyone in his podcast, and he goes for Carlton.
Okay.
Move on.
Yeah,
Let's
cool.
move on. We'll finish on that note. That was brilliant.
Okay. Anyway, definitely a controversial topic. Everyone has different views on that one. But let's now move on to who we think is our top 8. Do you guys think the top 8 is set in stone at the moment? It's staying the same, or do you think that maybe a GWS or a Bulldogs, Essendon, Carlton, or Gold Coast are going to squeeze in somehow? What do you guys think? Josh, I'll start with you.
At the moment, I think it's pretty solid. It might bounce around a bit, the top 8, but one thing I could almost say for certain is Collingwood will drop out and GWS will come in their place. But the top 4 looks pretty set with West Coast, Geelong, Brisbane, and Port. It's just that bottom 4 of the 8 that might switch about.
Yep. Okay. James, what do you reckon, mate? Who do you reckon? Do you think anyone's coming in, or do you think it's set in stone?
Yeah, looking at it right now, I think that I think Melbourne might drop out just based on their inconsistency. A couple of weeks they're on, the 1 week they're off, and towards the end of the season, it's just not going to cut it. So I feel like they'll drop out. For who, I don't know. Obviously, looking at it now, either a GWS or a Bulldogs if they keep their form up, and I think that Collingwood, just based off their injury list. And the way they're going right now as well, I think they'll fall out of the.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Connor Brown, what do you think, mate?
Yeah, look, it's pretty similar. I think Geelong and West Coast are probably the best 2 teams in it at the moment from my point of view. I think they've shown the strongest signs as also very experienced teams. However, I do think that Melbourne are going to squeeze in the top 8 this year. I think watching the game on the weekend was very impressive, and if they continue that with the return of Max Gawn too, who's I think another week or 2 away. But another big one is, I don't know whether it's the Bulldogs or GWS. It's one of those, but I think, yes, it was Adelaide, but that performance from the Bulldogs on the weekend was very impressive, and I think if that midfield sort of steps up, they're a great chance of squeezing in that top 8.
Yep. Okay. Sonny Purdy, what do you think?
I agree with Connor. I reckon Melbourne have been solid for the past 2 weeks and look very impressive. I reckon they'll stick in the 8. I reckon the top 5, so the top 4, and including St Kilda and maybe Richmond as well. I reckon that's kind of set. But yeah, it depends on I reckon Collingwood's out for me, but the Bulldogs have had. Last year they had a great run on the back end of the season and in 2016, but I don't know if they'll carry over to this year. They have been looking. We beat Adelaide. It is Adelaide, but it was a good, impressive win. But I reckon GWS is still they're a great team. They're just not in form right now, and I reckon they'll eventually pick it up. And as heartbreaking as it is, I reckon they'll slip into the 8.
Yep. Okay. For me, I think Collingwood do slide out of the 8 just due to the amount of injuries that they've got. I think Melbourne will be really inconsistent from now till the end of the season. I think GWS are just too talented of a team to not make the 8, and I think they'll really, hit their straps towards the end part of this season. And I think that the Bulldogs always finish strong as well. So if I was to pick, 2 teams to slide out, it's Collingwood and Melbourne, and 2 teams to go in, GWS and Bulldogs. And you've got your Carlton and your Gold Coast as 2 sneaky little chances if they go on an amazing run towards the end of the season as well. Josh, last thing from you, mate.
Just quickly, it's going to be interesting between Melbourne, GWS and Bulldogs because they all face each other at some point over the next 5 weeks. So that'll definitely be the determining factor. Yeah,
definitely. It'll definitely be interesting. I think there will be a few teams on same points, just based on percentage. We'll get them into the 8. I think it is a very tight and competitive season.
Thank you, Josh.
Now let's move on. Sorry, what was that?
Thank you, Josh, for the input.
Thanks for your input, Josh. Round 13 tips. Let's go. So, game number 1, prime time. We've got the Gold Coast Suns versus Carlton at TO Stadium. Josh, what's your verdict?
I saw Gold Coast tonight just play so poorly, Like, it was a decent first half, but the second half was so pathetic that I can't see Carlton losing.
Okay, fair enough. James, what do you think?
I'm going to go Carlton.
Okay. Connor?
I sort of want to back Gold Coast here. Marlon, I know
Yeah.
This is 2 weeks in a row now, but I feel like Gold Coast, they're in need of a win, and I feel like this could be it.
Okay, sweet. So you think the Suns, Sonny Purdy, what do you think, mate?
I reckon Gold Coast for me.
Okay, fair enough. You boys know I always back my boys, no matter who they're versing, so I'm going the Blues as well. No, it'll be a tight game, I think. I think it'll be really close. Okay, so let's move on to Metricon Stadium, where we've got the Western Bulldogs who take on the Melbourne Demons. Josh, what do you think?
Oh, this is definitely the game of this is the game of the round, in my opinion. But the Demons didn't look that impressive, in my opinion, and the Bulldogs definitely played really well. But their set shot kicking for goal was pretty pathetic. So it'll be tight, but I reckon Melbourne will just steal a victory.
Okay, awesome. So you think Melbourne. James, what do you think? Dogs or Melbourne?
I'm feeling just based on their performance on the weekend. I like Connor touched on just before. It was against Adelaide, but I feel that, with the inclusion of Norton now and him, having a big performance on the weekend, I think that there are looking upwards. So I'm going to go Doggies.
Okay. Connor Brown, who do you think will take this one out?
Yeah, look, initially I was thinking Melbourne, but I know that Max Gawn, I think, is still another week away. So I think with the midfield that both teams have, I just think that Bulldogs are going to get up in this one, gut feeling.
Awesome. Sonny Purdy, your Dogs take on Melbourne Demons. I know you go for the Doggies. Who do you think?
Oh, massive game. I reckon the Bulldogs will get over the line. It'll be a close one, but yeah, Bulldogs for me.
Okay. I also think the Doggies will get over the line for this one. Now we move on to Adelaide Oval, where we've got Port Adelaide versus Hawks. Josh, what do you think?
No James Sicily, no whatever was left of Hawthorn. There's just none. So Port Adelaide.
Yeah. Okay, Port. James?
Yeah,
Port Adelaide.
Yep.
Port Adelaide. Connor?
Yeah, Port.
Port. Sonny? Port as well, I'm guessing. Yep, and Port for me as well. All right. Essendon versus Richmond at TO Stadium. Josh?
No real form from Essendon, so Richmond.
Yeah. Okay. James?
Richmond.
Yep. Connor Brown?
Don't call me a fake fan here, please, Marlon. But I just think we're lacking, so I'm going to go Richmond.
Well, you know what, mate? You are a fake fan for doing that. that is terrible from you. Okay. Now, Sonny Purdy, what do you think? Essendon or Richmond?
Richmond. 100%.
Okay. I think Richmond. as well. It's sort of a must-win for Essendon if they want to sort of make finals in some way, but it's going to be tough. Anyway, let's move on to Optus Stadium. Freo's home game against the Sydney Swans. Josh, what do you think?
I don't think homegrown advantage will do them too much favours because Sydney Swans played the game really well at Optus last week against the Giants. So I'm going to tip the Swans.
Okay, sweet. James, what do you think?
Who they playing? Swans and who?
Swans and Freo at Optus Stadium.
I think Freo will bounce back. I think after close loss.
Yep.
Yeah, Freo.
Okay, Connor Brown, go for it.
Yeah, I think Freo are going to bounce back, so I'll go Freo.
Yep, sweet. Sonny, what do you think?
Yeah, I reckon Freo, home ground. Carlton's a pretty good team.
Awesome.
They're winning the whole
Yep.
game. Yeah.
Sweet. Yeah, I think Freo as well. They were really good when we played them. Adelaide Oval again. We've got Adelaide Crows versus Geelong Cats. Josh, your Cats. What do you think?
Cats all the way.
Cats. James.
Geelong.
Geelong. Yep. Connor.
Yeah, Geelong.
Geelong. Sonny. Geelong. Sweet. And I'll go Geelong as well. Okay, Brisbane versus the Saints at the Gabba. This is a big one. You know, two teams in the top 5 going at it. Josh, what do you think?
Yeah, definitely two good teams, but, you know, a lot of good form from the Lions, not a lot of good form from the Saints, even after a 6-goal win. So I'm going to tip the Lions.
Yep. James, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to tip the Lions.
Okay, Connor.
I'm going to go the Saints. I think
Saints,
Brisbane's
okay.
goal kicking has been an issue for them,
Yep.
and that can ultimately cost them. So I'm going to go with the Saints.
Okay, awesome. Sonny Purdy
Just remind me where this game is again.
at the Gabba.
All right, yeah.
It is
so
at
it's
the.
a weird game at Gabba.
It is a weird game at the Gabba. It
Yeah,
is.
weird overlay. I reckon Brisbane for me. Too strong.
Yep. Okay. Awesome. I'll go. You know what? I'm sort of agreeing with Connor here. I think the Saints will get over the line in this one. Now we've got West Coast Eagles versus GWS. Both very talented teams. One's performing better than the other at the moment. Josh, what do you reckon? This is at Optus, by the way.
Yeah,
Optus
that's the
Stadium.
thing. You know, the Giants played the Oval really poorly last week. Didn't show much form, and West Coast, you know, just been smashing it this year. So the Eagles.
Yep. Okay. James.
Yeah, Eagles for me.
Eagles. Yep. Connor.
Yeah, Eagles for me.
Eagles. Connor. Sonny.
I don't see West Coast losing too many at home. So
Okay.
yeah, Eagles.
Sweet. And I'll go West Coast as well. Now, last game of the round, we've got another weird game at the Gabba. We've got Collingwood versus North Melbourne. Okay. Sorry, I'll save it for later. Josh, what do you reckon?
Kanga, roo, roo, roo. You like that shit?
This is a cricket effect. Insert cricket effect right now.
No.
Okay, now James, on to you. Collingwood or North Melbourne?
I'm going to have to go Collingwood just because, you know, they're my side and a fake fan like Connor Brown. So I'm just have to back my side even though we've got a lot of injuries. Just gonna back them
Okay.
in.
Connor Brown, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to go Collingwood here. I think they need to bounce back.
Awesome.
They've got to get up.
Yep. Sonny Purdy?
Yeah, they need to bounce back, but they won't. I reckon North Melbourne will win this
Okay.
one.
Well, funny enough, I actually also think that North Melbourne will get over the line as well.
Kanga.
Kanga. Roo, roo. That's it. Is there anything else you boys wanted to touch on before we wrap up episode 4?
Tom Hawkins.
Player of the week, I reckon.
All right, just with the last segment of episode 4, we'd like to quickly touch on a few players of the week or of the round. So, Connor Brown, I'll start with yours. Who was your player of the week for round 12?
Mine's Luke Parker this week from Sydney.
Okay. Yep.
Thought he put in a great performance in a great win, and he came away with the medal from the derby. 29 disposals at 52% efficiency. But the thing that really stood out for me was his 21 pressure acts, and he spent 88 out of 99 minutes on the ground. So I just think all round he just put in a good hard effort and sort of, I'm not going to say single-handedly because Swans played amazing, but really stood up and got Sydney the win.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he definitely did play his part in that big Sydney win on the weekend, or during round 12, sorry. Josh, who's your player of the week for round 12?
I don't like talking about Geelong players being player of the week because it sounds biased, but I reckon the undisputed player of the week this week was Tom Hawkins. 6 goals from 10 marks, 7 of them contested. His score involvements was absolutely fantastic. He had 12 of those, 17 disposals. He made Cleary look a fool, really. And, a big 10-goal win over Port Adelaide, and he was the key part of that.
No, definitely. I do agree with you. He had a very solid game. I think he's leading the Coleman now as well, which is good signs for Geelong fans. And I think he hasn't won one either in the past, so it'll be good for him to sort of get up and win one.
It's come close, but
okay. Yeah. Sonny Purdy, who was your player of the week?
Again, like Josh, I don't want to sound biased, but I reckon Marcus Bontempelli played an all-round game. He had 33 disposals, 12 clearances, 9 tackles, and 2 goals. It was just everywhere for the Bulldogs. I also want to give a quick shout-out to Vazelinka, 37, and Norton, 56 goals.
Yep.
They were also impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely good to see the skipper stand up for his side. With 33 touches and 2 goals, as you said. Well, anyway, that sort of wraps up the Benchwarmers episode 4 podcast, where we spoke everything footy. You can now go back out, go hard again, and then come back to the bench for another spell in episode 5, where we'll be coming to you with the big events of round 13 and seeing what happens there. We look forward to seeing you guys next episode, and be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.